yes, her personal feelings. Jenny was having a terrible time then, and I suppose that I was responsible. But I did not know how to ease her anguish. You must understand, Jenny and I fell in love when I was 17. She was 19. She was marvelous looking. Auburn hair and green eyes. And for some reason her family took a liking to me. They were aristocrats. Aristocrats are always interested with intellectuals. Now, her father and I would have long discussions on Greek philosophy. I had done my doctoral thesis on Democritus and Heraclitus, and I was just beginning to realize that up until now, the philosophers had only interpreted the world, but the point was to change the world. And so when I was expelled from Germany, Jenny followed me to Paris. There we married. She gave birth to Jenny. We were happy in Paris, living on nothing, meeting our friends in the cafe. They also lived on nothing. What a bunch we were. There was Bakunin, the huge, shaggy anarchist, Engels, the handsome atheist, Heine, the saintly poet, Stirner, the total misfit, and Proudhon, who said, property is theft, but he wanted some. Yes, being poor in Paris is one thing. Being poor in London is another. I sometimes felt Jenny blamed me for having to raise our children in a cold, damp flat where someone was sick all the time. And Jenny came down with smallpox. She recovered, but it left pockmarks on her face. I tried to tell her she was still beautiful, but it didn't help. I wish you could know, Jenny. What she did for me cannot be calculated. Jenny believed in my ideas, but she was impatient with what she considered the pretensions of high-level scholarship. Oh, come down to earth here, doctor, she would say. Well, she wanted me to explain inferior surplus value so that ordinary workers could understand it. Well, and I told her, no one can understand it without first understanding the labor theory of value, right? How labor power is a special commodity whose value is determined by the cost of the means of subsistence, and yet is valued to all other commodities, a value which always exceeds the value of labor power. Right? Jenny shook her head and said, no, that won't do. She told me, all you have to say is this. Your employer pays you the barest amount of wages, just enough for you to survive and work. But out of your labor, he makes far more than what he pays you. So he gets richer, richer and richer, while you stay poor. All right. All right. Let's say that only 100 people in world history have ever understood my theory of surplus value, but it is still true. See, just last week I was reading the reports in the United States Department of Labor. Now there you have it. You see, your workers are producing more and more in goods and getting less and less in wages. And what is the result? It's just as I predicted. Now, the richest 1% of American population owns 44% of your nation's wealth. In America, the great model of world capitalism. And your nation has not only robbed its own people, but sucked in the wealth of the rest of the world. Jenny was always trying to simplify ideas that were by their nature complex. Oh, she accused me of being a scholar first and a revolutionary second. Oh, forget your intellectual reader, she would say. Address the workers. She called me arrogant and intolerant. Oh, why do you attack other revolutionaries more vehemently than you attack the bourgeoisie, she'd ask. Well, Proudhon, for instance. I mean, the man did not understand that we must applaud capitalism for its development of giant industries and then take them over. No, Proudhon thought we must retreat into a more simple society. When he wrote his book, The Philosophy of Poverty? I replied with my own book, The Poverty of Philosophy. I thought that was clever. Jenny thought it was insulting. Jenny was a far better human being than I will ever be. And Jenny encouraged me to get off my boils and to get involved in the cause of the London workers. She came with me when I was invited to address the first meeting of the International Working Men's Association. This was the fall of 1864. There were 2,000 people packed into St. Martin's Hall. The workers of all countries must unite against foreign policies which are criminal, which play upon national prejudices, which squander in war the people's blood and treasure. We must combine across national boundaries to vindicate the simple laws of morals and justice in international affairs. Workers of the world, unite! Jenny liked that. And Jenny kept the family going. The water cut off and the gas cut off, but she never tired of the subject of female emancipation. She said the vitality of women was being sapped by staying home, cooking, and darning socks. And she refused to stay at home. She accused me of being theoretically an emancipationist, but practically ignorant of the problems of women. Oh, you and Engels, she said, you write about sexual equality, but you do not practice it. Well, I won't comment on that. But Jenny and I were powerfully in love. How can I make you understand that? But we went through hellish times in London. And the love was still there, but at a certain point, things changed. I don't know why. Jenny said it was because she was no longer the great beauty I had wooed. That made me angry. She said it was because of Lynching. That made me even more angry. She said I was angry because it was true. That made me furious. They claim that because the Soviet Union has collapsed, that communism is dead. Do these idiots know what communism is? I mean, do they think that a system run by a thug who murders his fellow revolutionaries is communism? Scheisskrafen. Yes, journalists, politicians who say such things. What kind of education did they have? Did they ever read the manifesto that Engels and I wrote? In place of the old bourgeois society, with its classes and class antagonisms, we shall have an association in which the free development of each is the condition for the free development of all. Do you hear that? An association. Do they understand the objective of communism? Freedom of the individual to develop himself, herself, as a compassionate human being. Do they think that someone who calls himself a communist or a socialist, but acts like a gangster, understands what communism is? To shoot those who disagree with you. Can that be the communism I gave my life for? When that monster who took all power for himself in Russia, and who insisted on interpreting my ideas like a religious fanatic, when he was putting his old friends up against the wall before firing squads, did he allow his citizens to read the letter I wrote to the New York Tribune, in which I said capital punishment could not be justified in any society calling itself civilized? Socialism is not supposed to reproduce the stupidities of capitalism. And here in America, your prisons are overcrowded, right? Who is in them? Bugs. The poor. And some of them have committed violent, terrible crimes. Most of them are burglars, thieves, robbers, sellers of drugs. They believe in free enterprise. They do what the capitalists do, but on a much smaller scale. And you know what Engels and I wrote about prisons? Rather than punishing individuals for their crimes, we should destroy